start with Kevin because we know Kevin. We've met him personally. Andrew will definitely want to hear from you as well. But Kevin, do me a favor. Tell me a little bit about who you are, and then specifically, we want to jump into your involvement in the sport of Padel. And I have only recently been convinced that that's how I have to pronounce it. So I have to say Padel. It isn't just paddle, right?
Yeah, it's long going debate about that. So I think at this point we'll go with whatever works for people. So yeah, I'm Kevin. I started in the world of tennis. Been a coach last 15 years. Was a director of junior development at Ace Tennis Academy, as well as director of one of our other satellite clubs. Last 10 years or so, I've been working with Emory University as well. Last 2 years, my two full-time years with the university with the women's tennis team, and I was the assistant coach there. I've gotten into paddle in the recent years. Just first time I heard about it was on Instagram, so knew how fun it was. It looked awesome. Andrew was up in New York at the time, and they have a lot of paddle up there, so I always forced him to play with me, even though he was a lot better than me at the time. Now it might be debatable. We'll see. But we've been talking about doing something for a little bit, and we started about a year and a half ago. Was kind of when the first idea of the sprouted. Won't get too much in that backstory. Maybe a story for another time on that. But Andrew's a pretty avid paddle player. Was ranked, I think, top 20, top 30 in the U.S. at one point, if I'm not mistaken. And so he's got a big love for the game, and me being a racket guy as well. It's just another thing to get addicted to, another racket sport to get addicted to. So it's a good community that we've seen grow here in Atlanta and kind of just around the U.S. So it's definitely a fun sport that we've gotten into, and luckily we've got on the business side of things. We were looking for a location for several months last year. We landed at ITA in Chambly and been able to partner with them to build 4 courts over there, and has grown ever since. So we started construction about late summertime. We ended construction around November and really started business December timeframe. And now it's been around 6 months or so, and definitely seeing a big uptick in the community and involvement. And the one big thing that Andrew and I focus a lot on is community engagement. Being able to draw people in from all different types of racket sports background. We have a lot of different people from different countries that are coming out and play as well, just because it is quite popular overseas. But the biggest thing for us is just being able to, tap into different groups and different communities within Atlanta.
And I like that. That's bringing everybody together. We talk about community a lot. We talk about the connectivity of what sport does for us and bringing everybody in. And Bobby made a comment the other day. He says, Shaun, I said, we're going to talk to the paddle guys or the Padel guys, whichever one it is. And this is going to be fun. And we're going to talk pickleball. And I said, but what are we going to do? This is Go Tennis. He says, Shaun, it's all tennis. Just a slightly different version here and there, especially when the tennis guys like us can jump in and feel like we can figure it out. Even Kevin over here thinks he can hang with Andrew at this point. And Andrew sounds like he's actually a really good player. So, Andrew, tell me a little bit of how you got stuck working with Kevin.
So I've known Kevin for, I guess, almost 10 years now. We were college teammates, played tennis together at Kenyon. And so after I graduated, I kept with tennis pretty heavily. I work a job in finance, but was still playing tennis like 5 days a week in New York, where I live now. I live in Brooklyn. And then I had seen the Instagram videos same way as Kevin for the paddle stuff, and heard rumors of a club opening in New York. So I just waited and waited and waited for the club to actually open. And then as soon as the club opened, joined and started playing, and then started traveling all over the US to play. And so Kevin and I were at my 30th birthday and just talking. We're like, man, it'd be so cool to open a club in Atlanta because the tennis community is so strong there and such a good opportunity to get in and do something and be on the forefront of all this. And then Kevin and I, a couple weeks later, followed up with each other. And we're like, I was kind of serious if you were. And we started looking, and now we've got the club at ITA, and then last month we just opened another location in Kentucky, where I'm originally from, in Louisville. So we have another 3-court facility there. So it's just been a lot of fun, and juggling everything with both of us having full-time jobs and doing this massive project on the side was something. But I think we've done a very good job with, like Kevin said, the community side of it, and just building really good relationships with the people that are there, which is the most fun part. And then from a tennis perspective, like to your point, all of this is tennis. We come from heavy tennis backgrounds, and so many of the people who are playing at ITA are old tennis players or former tennis players who don't necessarily want to play tennis anymore, but they want another sport where they can chase the ball for 2 hours.
Yeah, Bobby, I'm sure I'm gonna steal your question, which is, are you drawing from mostly tennis people? Is this a conversion scenario similar to people aging out into pickleball, where there's a conversion? You have to say, okay, well, I can go do that, and it's a little bit easier than tennis. And that's good because the barrier to entry is easier. And in that case, I can kind of age out into pickleball fairly easy. Kevin, how do you guys bring in the tennis players? Because there's a physicality to Padel that's different. I mean, it's the opposite of pickleball, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's a good question. Just being in the community here with tennis, it's been a little bit easier trying to get some of my buddies out there and playing, and then go from there. We found that the pickleball market, as I spoke about the other day, it's a little bit different, right? It's a little bit different of a crowd. You have some crossovers where former tennis players play, and then a lot of former athletes that played at a decently high level, or in college or in high school, and they find that they want something possibly a little bit more physical than some other sports. They'll come over and play paddle or padel, and they can still have fun. It's a very social sport, just kind of how the pickleball is. It's doubles. Typically, you come hang out before you come, you have a drink or hang out after the fact as well too. But it's been fun to see who all has been coming out and who all has been really enjoying the sport.
Yeah, and we can focus on who's coming out. We have all the demographic questions. Who's it going to be and all that. But I know, before I steal all of the time, because I'm capable of doing that, I'm sure Bobby's got some more business related questions, because Bobby, you were down there at their opening event, correct?
I was. My first question, however, has to do with, where are you in Brooklyn that you have that kind of backdrop? I grew up in New York, and never did I look out a window that looked like that. So where are you?
I live in Fort Greene in Brooklyn, but I'm actually in Atlanta right now.
Oh, okay.
We have a tournament. We have a tournament this weekend, so I'm in Atlanta for the next few days, and then I'll go back up to Kentucky to run the show at our club in Kentucky for a little bit before I go back to Brooklyn and visit my family up there with it. But
that makes me feel better. Okay.
Be living the highlights if that was what I had.
I was like, geez, my dad was a longshoreman on the docks in Brooklyn. I never saw that view my whole life. So, what is the name of the gentleman who's the Padel guru in Florida? I mean, this
Marcos Del Pilar.
Marcos, yes, Del Pilar, yes. Okay, I spoke to him years ago, and he was such an advocate. And then I think really to appreciate it, you have to go see it. The courts really look cool. There you can see through. So it just, like as Shaun said, it's not to me the older. It's definitely for the younger, and I think it's going to catch on. And the company that bought courts, it was a huge. The reservation system court was designed for Padel in Spain. So it's coming. They thought they were going to make an impact in tennis because they had such a great background with Padel in Spain. They had a couple of bumps, but definitely the sport has been buzzing around for some time. You guys rent the space, the lease agreement, are looking to expand if somebody else has room for you guys?
Yeah, I think we took a similar model, like the sublease type arrangement that we've got with ITA. It's the same thing we're doing in Kentucky, but we also plan to open up our own clubs as well and just do like where we're running the show ourselves and have our own space. The nice thing about going in as a subleaser in these arrangements is we just get to skip a lot of the ticker tape that's required to get up and running, because there's a lot of permitting and different things like that. If you go to a club that already has the land, they're already zoned to build courts, so you just have to worry about, is there any height restrictions or things like that you go into. So I think like we started talking with ITA last year in like July, and we had courts in November built up, and we started talking with the place in Kentucky in I think like December or January, and we have courts as of this month. And so talking to the people who we bought our courts from that did the distribution, everything from Spain, they were like, it's really cool to see what you and Kevin have done, because we get so many people reaching out to us like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. Can you quote me on courts? And then we don't hear from them again for 3 years. You guys have 2 clubs open within, 9 months of contact with us. And like, that just doesn't happen. So I think we've been very fortunate in that we've found really good partners who share the vision of what we're trying to do and are willing to let us come in and, operate with a lot of range to do what we want to do to help grow how we want. Because the toughest thing with this has just been, okay, great, we're doing this new thing in Atlanta, in Louisville. We're introducing an entirely new sport. So it's not even like, okay, we build these courts and we've got to grow the business to attract people to come play at our site. We have to teach everybody how to do what they're doing. And so I think that's the really important thing, where you want to make people really enjoy themselves, want to come back. The community is a part of that, but also just helping them understand that the barrier to entry for this sport is not as crazy high as it seems. Because a lot of people are very intimidated by, oh, there's this wall that I've got to do. And like every time somebody comes to us, they're talking about, oh, I got to do this on the wall. And if you spend 45 minutes with somebody, you can get them on the wall and playing a game at the end of 45 minutes. And my girlfriend, who has no background in racket sports, she's like, tennis or paddle is so much easier than tennis. And it was cool to hear that, because it just means you just have to show people that it is much, much easier to pick up.
How do you deal with Atlanta, where tennis is free? What is your price points? I mean, obviously this is a business. In Atlanta, unfortunately, tennis is free. We had an opportunity with pickleball to try to change the paradigm, and wasn't real successful there. And it's going down the free avenue as well. There has to be a fee associated with playing. What is an hourly court time for Padel?
Our hourly rate is $60 an hour for the court during prime time hours. Okay. To give you a comparison, we are one of the cheapest options in the entire U.S. I would say the average hourly cost for paddle in the U.S. right now is around $100 an hour. If you go to New York, it can be as high as $300 an hour. Miami is in like a 120 to 150 range. And then you have cheaper places like San Diego is a little bit cheaper. Texas is a little bit cheaper. But we tried to be on the lower end of everything because of that exact issue, where we knew, people are going to look at this and be like, okay, well, I can play tennis for free. I can play pickleball for free. Why am I paying, even if it's $15 a person, which is what 60 an hour is, why am I going to spend $15? But if you can get somebody on a court for 2 hours and they like it, it doesn't matter what the price is, they're going to come back. I mean, within reason, obviously. You can't charge $500 an hour, but as long as they don't feel like they're getting highway robbed, the retention rate of somebody who plays paddle for 2 hours is very, very high. But getting them to that 2 hours is the tough thing that you have to do, and figuring out what the easiest way to do that is, whether it's, promotional clinics and free nights and open houses, or, just coming out for a clinic and having them do that piece. And I think that's been something Kevin and I have really focused on, is how do we get people out there for that first time and make them have such a positive experience that they want to come back for the second time? Because if we can get them back for that second time, we likely have them and they're our client for the foreseeable future.
Very good. Very good. That's my big curiosity there. Just anything in Atlanta introducing with the finances is difficult, and it's an uphill. It's a great. I mean, I was there for the opening house. The people couldn't jump on quick enough. They looked like they were having a blast. It, like I said, looks cool, aesthetically pleasing, blended in really well with the ITA. I always tell Shaun that the pickleball courts were filled, the Padel courts were full, the tennis courts were empty. So, you know, and that's going to be their issue there. But I think, you know, obviously having you guys there, something novel that draws traffic will help and led to the curiosity. If they finish the construction on that temporary housing that used to be the hotel, that would be a big boon as well for the establishment. Where are we next concentrating for the next location? Are you looking for partners? You looking for, you know, what's next for you guys to continue your growth?
So we're trying to lock down our situation in West Midtown to open our own club in West Midtown is the goal for the end of this year. And then we're just kind of always looking to see, because real estate is the toughest challenge in all this, and finding the space you can do it. And you just have to keep yourself open to opportunities is what we found. I don't think either of us planned to be in Kentucky as quickly as we were. But like that opportunity just came up. We were looking at real estate casually. We found a partner who has a great location right on the Ohio River in Louisville. And we were able to build 3 courts there and just kind of operate as our own. And so it was like, okay, that's a great opportunity. We can't turn that down. And it's a good way for us to expand. And so similarly, we'll keep our ears out for opportunities. And I think the bigger goal for us is we want to really, you know, dominate the Atlanta area. So not only, you know, in Atlanta proper, but get to some of the suburbs and, you know, go north, go south, and take advantage of the fact that we have a great Atlanta name with the P.A.T.L stuff, and, you know, make ourselves the brand in Atlanta for paddle, and, you know, take advantage of how vibrant the tennis community is and how well spread it is.
What's your demographic of the typical Padel player, if there is one?
20s to 50s. Former tennis player is ideal. Right now, I mean, we've really leaned into the Latin population in Atlanta. I would say like the majority of the people who are playing right now are people from various countries in South America or Spain who have some previous exposure to it, but we're starting to get a lot of former college tennis players as well that are playing. I think one thing, and Kevin may be able to talk this a little bit better since he's here full time and seeing it, is we've just learned that we're not going to convert a lot of pickleball players. So we've really decreased prioritizing like, oh, we're right by all these pickleball courts, let's try and sell some pickleball players on coming over and trying this, because it's just a totally different market. If you can find a pickleball player that comes from a tennis background and switched to pickleball because they didn't want to or couldn't play tennis for some reason any longer, then those are really good people. But if you're looking at somebody who like just plays pickleball and has only played pickleball, the chances that person converts to paddle are almost none. They may try it for once, but like, oh, this is cool, I'm going to go back and play pickleball. Yeah. So we've really deprioritized that type of person, and we're really focused on tennis players, especially those, you know, 20s, 30s, 40s, that want to do something different. I think the tagline that I heard from somebody is about paddle, which is very true, is that the barrier to entry is very low, but it's also an incredibly difficult sport to master. And so you get a lot of people who come in and they can start playing really quickly, but the idea of them getting very good is hard and it requires a lot of work. And that's why it keeps a lot of these super talented tennis players interested, is because it gives them something to get better at versus tennis where they've really plateaued and they're only going to get worse.
I feel like you're talking about me right there, Andrew. You just saying I plateaued in my tennis game and I'm only getting worse from here. I feel like I took that personally.
I'm talking about you, me, Bobby, Kevin, everybody.
Right?
Yeah, I'm not picking on any one person.
No, you're not talking about me. I'm so old that I'm out of your demographic.
Well, but Bobby, I was talking to Kevin previously, and he was talking about how interesting it is as a sport in and of itself, and that if you're really looking for the physicality of playing, and where you and I might not be of the typical age of that, I can only guess a lot of Kevin's friends, a lot of those local guys played college tennis at Georgia Tech. That kind of guy is really going to enjoy Padel. They're really going to like that, because I like what Andrew said. However good we are and however old we are, tennis, you get to a point and then you realize that's as good as I was ever going to be. And that's probably it. And you're on your way down at some level. If you can maintain it, that's great. But pickleball, we all go play it. It's fun. We figure it out. Whack, whack, whack. We beat all our friends. Takes us about 12 minutes to figure it out. And then we're like, well, okay, well, that was easy. What's next? But I think Padel, Kevin, would you agree that with Andrew's statement, that there's much further to go on that higher end?
Yeah, I think with kind of a lot of the shots that are added back in from comparison with pickleball, the lobs are a huge play. You having a little bit more touch and a little bit more feel and not just all power. Learning some more of the strategies and the angles and court positioning. I think the dynamicness of the game keeps people interested in, like Andrew said, and like you said, it takes a little bit of time to master that part of it. You get to a certain level where a lot of players have good racket skills, so that makes it a little bit more fun competing against some of those guys too. I think adding that physicality plus the number of shots that you can hit, it keeps a lot of people interested in playing and still trying to continue to grow and try to improve as well.
All right, so Bobby, what we're gonna have to do is you and I are gonna be the team. We'll have a Go Tennis event down at the Padel facility at ITA. You and I will be the team. Anybody that gets to beat us can stay and keep the court. That way, we'll only have to play one game.
One time.
And we can go chat with somebody else. But give us a chance to kind of figure it out and have some fun. But it does look like a lot of fun. I love the fact that it's a heavily Latin as well, because that would make sense that, especially in Europe, that it's fairly popular. So the people that have come from those spaces, from those countries, would say, oh, well, I actually recognize this. And the transition into tennis is difficult. I was doing some keyword searching and some technical stuff with our website guys. And one of the most common searches right now is raqueta de tenis. I'm like, wait a minute. In Spanish, people are searching for tennis rackets. And I went, okay, what does this tell me? Is that even in Atlanta, or especially in Atlanta, especially in the US, that there's a heavily Spanish-speaking movement, a heavy Spanish-speaking movement into racket sports. And we see that a lot in our areas. I would guess in that Chambly area, the kind of underneath Spaghetti Junction space, where the demographic is there in Atlanta. That's also where you are, right? Andrew, is Kentucky different, or do you also see the Spanish-speaking demographic there heavily?
I mean, I think it's there. We're pretty early with what we're doing in Kentucky, so I mean, a lot of our audience there has been like my network from all my family's exposure there. A lot of squash people and everything from that community. I would say like a lot of squash players in Kentucky who are coming out to the courts now. But I mean, it's really an interesting place to be, because my family's super involved in USTA, so I hear all the tennis stats and pickleball stats and everything as they go head to head. And I mean, I think a lot of people, in paddle, we hear they just talk so much trash about pickleball, and like they're like, pickleball is going to die. And I think what they don't realize is there's room for all three of these sports, and all of them are growing at such a high rate. I mean, tennis is doing better than it's ever done, right? COVID was the best thing that could have ever happened for tennis, because it drew new people into it. The game is growing so much. The same thing with pickleball, and the same thing with paddle now is the fastest growing sport in the world, right? With this, it's the second most popular sport, in fact, in Spain, behind soccer, is paddle. And you see a lot of that. So it's really cool, as a former tennis player, to see just racket sports in general doing so well. And I think you're seeing that, and we're leaning into that, right? Where we want to get all these players involved and just ride the wave. And it's super exciting to be early into paddle. We want to get into the Latin community in Louisville. So that's our that's our focus now, is to get into that. And my Spanish is getting impeccable. I was getting messages last night in Spanish and thumbing my way through it. So that's I'm Duolingoing like crazy to be able to engage with the Spanish community.
That's smart. I like that. We met a director of men's programming, I think, at Atlanta Athletic Club the other day. He was talking about his Duolingo, and I do the same thing. My wife's Ecuadorian, so I'm trying to catch up on my Spanish as quickly as possible. And maybe that'll be good. That'll work out. That'll help my my entry into Padel. I've already got already able to work my way in. Bobby, what else you got? Because I've talked to Kevin quite a bit. I'm caught up. What do we want to share? What's the are there any burning questions? Or are we a little early with this?
Well, what can we do to, help drive some people down there? What perfect example, since we have limited space. It's not like when you do a tennis drill, you can still have on 2 people 14 courts. You have limited space with Padel. What is a good drill if we were to do an introduction to Padel sport? How many people would you consider successful?
As far as clinics go, I mean, typically we limit a clinic to 4 people, just from a space standpoint. To your point, it's tough. You can do some of the same cardio, paddle type things and merge people on. But I think what we really focus on is making sure that we have 4 people on the court. So private lessons, we do them, but we try and encourage, because it's a team doubles only sport. Right. So we encourage getting as many people out there as we can. From that perspective, to really work and do group-oriented events. What's done the best for us and been our most successful event that we run is we do something on a 2 or 3 times a week basis called Americanos, which is we get all of our courts. And this is, I mean, Kevin and I send out the notification on Mondays for our Thursday. And it's, I think the last 3 weeks has been filled within 5 minutes, 16 spots. But we get 4 courts going out. Everybody rotates around, plays tiebreakers with each other, and you play with every single person, like all other 15 people in the event. And it goes back to the whole, the level of play. We've verified everybody to make sure they're at the right level and they can mix and match. And it's super social, very low key, but still competitive, where you can play points and do things like that. And I think those are the things that are the best way to get in there, is maybe an intro clinic just to get your bearings and know the rules and everything. But the Americanos, where you get to mix and match and really lean into that social aspect of the sport, because similar to pickleball, where it's very social, I mean, paddle is inherently social because you are playing doubles all the time. Mm-hmm. You need 4 people to play, and you're constantly talking and, hanging out, and it's almost rude not to have a beer at the end of your match if you're hanging out with people, especially when you're, hanging out with a primarily Latin audience or European audience. I learned that early on.
And what's been nice about the Americanos is that as the sport's growing, as you're finding more people in the community, it's really fun about meeting people to play with too. You have your group of friends that you have maybe a few, but if you can't fill out 4, you guys aren't going to play. So I think a lot of people have been able to meet others to play with through the Americanos, and being able to just kind of get games outside of just those set hours during the week and during the weekends as well.
All right, so Bobby, we're doing it. We're gonna try to add more. It sounds like they're full, so they don't really need any help. We'll see if we can get involved for sure. Bobby, last question, because then I was going to ask them if they've got anything they've got coming up.
Zelda, let's see what they have going on.
All right, Kevin, you're in. Well, I guess by the background, if you're watching the video, we can tell that Andrew's not in New York at the time. But what do you guys have coming up at ITA? Anything interesting? You've got this kind of system. I think you do a lot of WhatsApp messaging. How can we get people? And I'll put everything in the show notes as well, so you don't have to spell it out. But how do we get everybody to get in touch with you if they want to go play some Padel, and what's coming up?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, our WhatsApp community group is huge. All that stuff is also on our website as well. We run clinics, these open plays, lessons every week. So there's a lot of opportunity through that. In the fall time, we will probably throw out a few events. I know Shaun, we talked a little bit about something possibly in the fall time as well. But as we're going into um, we'll have some social events, some one-day tournaments. We've been running about a Babylon one-day showdown tournament where we get a group of 20 people out there. So we have two group stages, and if you make it out of that group stage, you play for the finals bracket, and we bring some food and drinks out there too. So just kind of a good time as well. So we'll run some of those events in the fall time too, and possibly some bigger tournaments as well. So got a lot coming up.
Nice, Bobby. I heard if we show up with a sponsor, they'll run the event. So I think we can definitely get together on this one. So what we like to do at the end, gentlemen, number one, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Kevin, we love that you're playing on our pro league team this summer. That's been a lot of fun to watch. And we've got a big week next week coming up. I guess say next week, I'm dating our conversation here. But this summer we're playing in the pro league. Kevin's playing. Andrew, sounds like you can play some tennis too next time you're in Atlanta. We'll have to get together and hit some balls. But what I want to finish with is what we always ask. And Andrew, I'll start with you. We always ask at the end, and we're going to bring it back to tennis because we always do bring it back to tennis. Bobby always says, we start with tennis and we can have any conversation we want. It goes from there. But in my case, I like to bring it back to tennis at the end if I can. So Andrew, our king of tennis question. So you got to take off your Padel hat, or maybe it could be you get everybody into Padel. I don't want to give you any ideas there. But if you were king of tennis and you could do or change anything at any level, professional, social, junior, any level, for any period of time, if you were king of tennis, is there anything you would do or change?
Yes, this is something we did when we were in college my freshman year. And I think it was something that our coach at the time learned from the Columbia team. But during our challenge matches, we were given one overrule a match if we thought our opponent made a questionable call. And obviously at the pro level, you have lines people or, virtual line callers, so it's not as big of an issue. But basically, any level down from that, I would love to see a rule like that implemented so you get rid of a bad call impacting a match. Like even I was playing in a USTA match this past weekend, and the 5-0 match, somebody hooked me, and I was just like, we're in our 30s, playing a match on a Sunday night at 8 p.m. Like, why do we need to do this? It doesn't mean that much. But it would have been nice just to be like, I'm going to take that ball. The ball is clearly in. Like, we're taking the point. So I think something like that would be really cool to see, and also deter a lot of the youth cheating that you see. I mean, I was always taught in the South, when you grow up playing and you're traveling to, I think we were playing a bullfrog at the point that I was doing it, but play one of those bullfrogs or something. If you hit it by the line, just expect that it's going to get called out, which is a terrible place to be.
Yeah, we learned that in college. When in doubt, call it out. But that's the out teams, the USTA teams, the league players, social players, they all know it. It's in during the clinic, but it's out on Thursday morning. I mean, we're all used to that. And I think a lot of the technology that's coming out recently has been focused on helping with line calls. And my theory is, I agree with you, it makes the world a better place. And in this case, tennis, you say, hey, this is going to make tennis better. I think it makes the world better because we're all a little bit happier at the end of the day that we're not fighting over line calls. I love that answer. I appreciate it, Andrew. Kevin, you're next. King of tennis. What do you do or change?
Yeah, that's something I've talked to some people about before in the past. I think kind of on the topic with Olympics coming up here, right? And how the tennis is formatted during the Olympics. I would love to see them do a little bit more of a Davis Cup style where, you have a few players per country playing a group stage against other countries like Davis Cup or like even like a World Cup style. And then, you get out of your group stage to go into a bracket or knockout stage. I think how it's set up right now, it just seems like just another professional tennis tournament where you're kind of playing a singles or a doubles, and you tack on the country flag to it, but I think to get a little bit more kind of like that team atmosphere, that country spirit. I love to see that as more of a team event versus a individual event.
Okay, I haven't heard it before. I like it. And also, it's what, 3 sets only? So clearly, Zverev's going to win again, right? Sorry, put it in the red book. Right down. Shaun predicts Zverev only 3 sets in the Olympics. But the team atmosphere makes me think of the Laver Cup, where one team might have, you got Novak, Roger, and Rafa, but that doesn't mean your team's going to actually win. It isn't just another professional event. The Davis Cup brings some excitement to it. Now, Kevin, I don't know this. Bobby, does anybody, Andrew, do you know, are there more individual events than team events in the Olympics overall? Does anybody know the answer to that?
I would say there's probably more individual events when you think of track and field and swimming.
Yeah, track and field is the dominant.
Track
So
and
yeah, I
field,
would go
swimming,
with
that's right.
individual as well.
I would guess that's how it started. Yeah, because in that case, especially if there are more individual events, I agree with Kevin. In that case, that bringing the group team event would be a lot of fun for the country. Well, guys, I love it. I love that we've got, I say, a new sport. I hadn't heard of it for, maybe a couple years ago.
Can I ask one more question, Shaun?
Go,
Since
yeah.
we're talking team, especially with P.A.T.L, the idea that you have to have at least 2. What about having a team of 3 where you can sub in?
Oh.
That's one thing I love to see in tennis as a coach, a high school coach, especially when the kid consistently blows, makes bad decisions. In basketball, if you miss 5 bad shots, you're going to have a nice, comfortable seat right next to me. Where in tennis, we have to sit there and go, oh God, so somebody's got to take the lead there and say, okay, come here, come sit down a second. Every time you take that shot, you're going to come sit right here.
It would be interesting. They're trying to do something like that with squash. So I just went to, they're calling it the National Squash League. And I went to a match when I was in Louisville a few weeks back, and they do, instead of playing scored games for squash, they do squash on a clock with 3 guys going head to head on each team, and they sub out, and they have power plays like hockey, and they just see who has the most points won after I think 10 or 11-minute periods. And it was pretty cool. So to your point, yeah, it'd be awesome. You see one guy getting tired, you bring in your ringer, and then you bring in another guy, and then you bring back the first guy once he's got his win back. That would be pretty awesome.
So what do you think about tennis on a clock?
I don't like I don't know. I think it would take away the creativity. You hear Nadal and Federer talk about how redundant the game has gotten because it's just such brute force. Yeah. And I think if you put tennis on a clock and you did something similar like that for tennis, you would just get these guys who come in and swing for winners for, their points to try and get quick points because there's no risk. I think that you miss it a lot where you saw Federer like Nadal, they would play with great point construction. And now it's just, okay, who can hit the biggest cross court ball to set up an inside out winner or inside in winner, for 30 minutes.
Hey, come on. Emilio Sanchez has made a lot of money with that theory. So come on.
Yeah. Not that anybody can't make money doing something well. And yeah, I agree with Andrew there. That's an interesting scenario of realizing it will change the mindset of the player if you change how the sport is played. And I think that's some of the things we like to talk about. That's why I like the King of Tennis question, because I would personally like to change some things. I'd say, baseball, I think you have to win an inning as opposed to getting a run. Or in the other sports where we have a period, look at hockey. You know what? I think you need to win 2 out of 3 periods would be kind of an interesting scenario because it would change more like tennis. And maybe it's just my appreciation for tennis scoring because I think it's elegant. I think it's brilliant. And it changes the momentum. And I can lose a set and I can take a deep breath. And how many all the time we're up a set and down a break, or we lose the first set and we break early in the second. The momentum swings are completely different in tennis than other sports. And I think adjusting some of those things could be a lot of fun. And Bobby asked about the time in tennis, because we might have something coming up here soon that could be an interesting version of tennis. And I guess to Bobby's point, maybe he's right. Everything's all just tennis. But in this case, Padel is a really cool version. And for anybody listening, check it out. I will put all the links in the show notes. I will make sure you guys know where to go. It's at the ITA facility, which basically, if you know where Spaghetti Junction is, go there, you'll find it. And we're going to try to do some events. We'll have some fun. And I wish you guys both lots of luck. Love that you got 2 done quickly. What, in the same year? I mean, that we're within a year. That's fantastic. And let's talk about your Midtown ideas too, because maybe we can have a little go Padel. We can change the logo and we can be a part of stuff. But we love running events. We love the community outreach. We love the community where we bring it in. What's the opposite of outreach, right? The community, we bring everybody in and we can do more than just tennis. And we can have tennis and pickleball and Padel. And I think there's beach tennis down there at ITA as well across the street. So there's a lot going on. But gentlemen, I appreciate it. We will make time to follow up. And like I said, everybody listening, we've got all the links, everything you need in the show notes and how to get in touch with everybody and where you need to go. And we will be in touch. So Kevin, Andrew of Play Paddle. I love the name, by the way. P.A.T.L. sounds like paddle. I figured that out. My brain went, oh, I get it. That's awesome. Great name. But gentlemen, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. Thanks, guys.
Thank you guys. Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Shaun. Thanks,
Have a good
Bobby.
day.